Lord Krishna says, "O my beloved, listen. Now pause in your endless rush and let my voice reach your heart. Feel the silence that surrounds you and close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a very quiet, deep night. Somewhere in the distance, a lamp flickers in the gentle breeze, its flame flickering. That lamp is very tired, yet still burning. Isn't that lamp just like your heart? You too have been running for far too long, to fulfill responsibilities, to keep loved ones safe, and to shape a tomorrow that hasn't yet arrived. Your mind has become like a marketplace where night never ends, where the noise of worries, regrets, and fears of the future constantly resonates. It's perfectly natural to feel so tired, so heavy. You are a very gentle and pure soul, trying to find your way in this fast-paced and complex world. But in this moment, in this one sacred moment, let all that noise subside. Take a deep breath. Put off the heavy armor you wear every day to face the world. Right now, in this moment, you don't have to fight anyone. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. From within this deep silence, that same soulful and divine voice is emerging again. It is the voice that has resided within you for ages, just waiting for you to pause and listen. Let this gentle voice wash over your weary soul, for what you are about to hear is not just a few words, it is medicine for your weary mind. Let us enter together into the most peaceful and beautiful chambers of your own consciousness. Chapter 1. The weight of invisible winds and the illusion of control. Out of that utter silence, a most sweet voice resounds. My love, you try to carry the weight of the entire sky on your fragile shoulders, forgetting that you are merely a beautiful, free leaf floating on the endless breeze. We often live under the profound illusion that we are the sole masters of our lives. We believe that if we don't grasp the reins of life with all our might, everything will fall apart. We spend our nights calculating, planning, and fearing the unknown tomorrow. You feel that you must be in control of everything. This desire to feel secure is very human, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's a terrible delusion to believe that security comes from controlling things that are beyond your control. Look at that mighty river flowing from the mountains to the ocean. That river doesn't force its way or worry. It surrenders itself to the natural pull of gravity. It bends over cliffs, embraces valleys, and flows without stubbornness. Its true strength lies not in its struggle, but in its flow. Long ago, in a mountain village, there lived a man named Devdut. He loved his family deeply, but this very love had become a deep worry for him. Devdut felt that if he didn't stay awake day and night, monitoring everything, some calamity would befall his family. He checked his doors 3 times every night, worried about the changing weather, and was always in a strange state of anxiety about his children's future. He lost sleep, and his body began to weaken from this constant stress. One night, a terrible storm struck the village. The winds were so strong that huge trees began to uproot. Devdut went mad with panic. He held the doors and windows of his house with all his might with both hands, as if he could stop this terrible fury of nature with his small strength. He struggled all night, crying and trembling. When morning came and the storm subsided, Devadutta opened the door with trembling hands. He saw that many of the village's large, sturdy trees, which hadn't succumbed to the wind, had been uprooted, but a small, flexible bamboo plant in his courtyard was unscathed. The plant had bent all the way to the ground with the wind during the storm. It hadn't resisted the wind, but had accepted it. Devadutta sat down on the ground and wept bitterly. He understood that he could survive the storm of life not by fighting it, but by yielding to it. My friend, why are you bleeding your hands trying to row against the divine current? The universe is not your enemy. When your plans fall apart, it's not a punishment. It's often divine guidance, leading you down a path not meant for you. Now let go of the oars. Trust the current of divine grace. It will carry you to the right shore. As you let go of your stubborn desire for control, you'll find that life is leading you to a peace you never imagined. Let's continue on this journey, where our deepest wounds begin to make sense. Chapter 2. The music of the hollow flute and the meaning of suffering. That gentle voice from within the silence once again reveals a profound secret. Your tears are not a symbol of your weakness. They are the sacred ink with which your soul writes its truest and deepest prayers to God. It's quite natural to feel angry or frustrated at times about the sorrows and hardships in your life. Send feedback. Use the arrows to see the full translation. You look at those betrayals, those losses, and those sudden wounds, and ask the empty sky, why me? Why does it hurt so much? You try to hide your wounds, thinking they make you incomplete. But from the perspective of the infinite, suffering is never a punishment. It is a furnace of spiritual alchemy. It is the process of melting away the ego and clearing the space so that the divine light can fill it. Consider a beautiful flute. Before it can produce divine music that captivates the hearts of thousands, the bamboo must be cut from its roots. It is pierced with sharp tools, burned, and completely hollowed out from within. For the bamboo, this process must seem utterly destructive, but only because it endures pain and becomes completely empty and hollow, the breath of God can flow through it, and its emptiness is transformed into a wonderful symphony. In an ancient city, there lived a highly skilled sculptor named Sumedha. Her hands were magical, and she could breathe life into stone. But one day, in an accident, the fingers of both her hands were severely crushed. The doctors declared that she would never again be able to hold a chisel or hammer. Sumedha's entire world was shattered. The art that breathed life into her was taken from her. For months, she sat in a dark room, deeply depressed. She cursed God in her harshest words. One day, a saint was passing through that city. He heard about Sumedha's plight and came to visit her. The saint opened the door to her room. It was pitch dark inside. Sumedha cried, "God has taken my life, my art from me. I have nothing left." The saint gently placed his hand on Sumedha's head and said, "Daughter, as long as you were carving stones, you were only creating statues for the world. But when God took the chisel from your hand, it means that now He Himself wants to carve you. Your suffering is not in vain." Sumedha found a strange peace in the saint's words. She stopped carving stones, but she began to look within herself. She began to put her pain, her suffering, and her despair into words. Years later, Sumedha emerged as a great poet whose hymns have comforted millions of grieving hearts for centuries. If her fingers had remained intact, she would have carved only stone statues, but her suffering has made her a sculptor of the soul. The darkness you are passing through right now is not a grave. It is a womb. You are being reshaped. The blow of the chisel certainly hurts, but the masterpiece being created within your soul is eternal. When we understand that our suffering is not our end, but a path, a wonderful stillness begins to dawn on the mind. Let us now embark on that journey within, where this stillness has always resided. Chapter 3. The Deception of the Distant Horizon and the Nectar Within. Listen carefully to this sweet reminder, coming from the center of your own consciousness. You constantly rush through the crowded marketplaces of the world in search of a ray of light, completely forgetting the eternal lamp that burns silently in the temple of your own heart. There is a deep, excruciating restlessness in the heart of today's man. You are repeatedly told that happiness lies just beyond that next horizon, in a better job, a bigger house, an ideal relationship, or a higher social status. And so, you rush. You exhaust yourself on a treadmill of desires, believing that peace is a destination you must earn. But every time you reach that horizon, it slips a little further away. This endless race empties you from within, because you're searching for infinite and eternal peace in limited and temporary things. Look at the musk deer found in the Himalayas. It is born with the world's most intoxicating, sweetest fragrance near its navel. But when that fragrance spreads in the air, the deer doesn't realize it's coming from within itself. It goes mad, running frantically through thorny bushes, over dangerous cliffs, and through dense forests. It searches for that fragrance outside, exhausting itself to the brink of death, for the one thing that was always within its reach. In ancient times, there lived a very wealthy merchant in Anandnagar, named Ratnakar. Ratnakar had everything: palaces, servants, gold coins, everything. But his mind was filled with utter unrest. He couldn't sleep. One day, someone told him that across the 7 seas lay a pearl of peace, which if worn, bestowed supreme bliss. Ratnakar abandoned all his kingdom and set out in search of the pearl. He crossed scorching deserts, climbed icy mountains, fought bandits, and wandered hungry and thirsty. 20 years passed. All his wealth was gone, his body weakened, and his clothes tattered. When Ratnakar, old and empty-handed, returned to his village, he sat under a tree and wept bitterly in despair. "I've wasted my entire life searching for a pearl, and I've found nothing." Just then, an old monk passed by. he saw Ratnakar crying and approached him. The monk smiled and said, "Ratnakara, when you left home, your mother made you wear a talisman around your neck, remember?" Ratnakar put his hand around his neck. The old amulet had turned black with dust and dirt, but it was still tied around his neck. The monk asked him to open it. As soon as Ratnakar opened it, a brilliant, divine pearl fell from within. It was the very pearl of peace he had struggled to find for 20 years. He hung his treasure around his neck, searching for it throughout the world. My precious friend, the peace you yearn for, the recognition and love you beg from the world, it's already within you. That divine essence is your true nature. You don't have to acquire it from anywhere else. You just have to clear the dust of illusion that has settled within you. Stop running. Sit quietly. You are already exactly where you should be. When we act with this peace, the meaning of life changes. Let's see how to act without getting entangled. Chapter 4. The Dance of Selfless Action. That voice of profound wisdom resonates again. Your only duty is to sow the seed and water the soil with complete sincerity and love. But the timing and manner of that flower's blooming depends entirely on the mysterious garden of time. This is the greatest secret of Karma Yoga. We suffer because we tie our inner peace to external results. You help someone and secretly expect praise or gratitude from that person. You work hard on a project, assuming you must succeed. When praise doesn't come, or when the project fails, your heart breaks. You are filled with bitterness. But the divine instruction is not to abandon action, but to abandon the concern associated with the outcome of that action. When you tie your happiness to an outcome, you become a slave to circumstances. But when you offer every duty as an offering at the feet of the universe, you become the invincible emperor of your own happiness. Look at a true farmer. He rises before dawn, tills the hard soil, sows the seeds with great care, and pulls out the weeds one by one. He pours his sweat into the earth. But once the seed is sown, it sleeps soundly and peacefully at night. He doesn't stand on the ground and yell at the seed, asking why it isn't sprouting quickly. He can't control the rain, the sun, or the insects. He simply does his work with complete devotion, leaving the rest to the heavens. In a kingdom lived a highly talented but unknown sculptor named Vasudeva. The rest of the artists in the capital carved statues for grand temples, for gold, and royal rewards. But Vasudeva took his chisel and hammer and went into the heart of a very dense and dangerous forest. There, on the side of a very high hill, right behind a waterfall, stood a huge rock. For an entire year, Vasudeva lived on wild fruits and spring water, carving the rock day and night. He created a statue of a god so wonderful and compassionate that no human had ever seen before. From the folds of the statue's clothes to the compassion in its eyes, everything was lifelike. When the statue was completed, a woodcutter, having lost his way, arrived there. The woodcutter was stunned by the sight of the masterpiece. He asked, "Vasudeva, why did you spend an entire year of your life carving this incomparable statue in this terrible forest? No one will come to see it, and soon the jungle vines will cover it. What reward will you get for this?" Vasudeva washed his tools in the waterfall and, smiling serenely, said, "I didn't carve this for human eyes or any reward. My duty, my joy, was in the very process of carving it. My deed was my prayer. God has seen it. This entire forest is his magnificent temple. What happens to this statue now is none of my concern." With this, Vasudeva left. His heart was lighter than a feather, for he no longer needed any validation from anyone. You will find your greatest freedom the moment you stop asking, "What will I get out of this?" Do your work with unconditional love. Raise your children with patience. Help a stranger selflessly. And then, just smile and move on. Let each of your actions become a beautiful offering cast into the sacred fire of life, for which you need no receipt. When you learn to work with this beautiful detachment, a slight fear may arise, the fear of walking this path alone. But this voice of silence assures you of the greatest truth in the world. Chapter 5. The Illusion of Loneliness and the Invisible Companion. Listen to this sweet assurance resonating in the solitude of your heart. In the moments when you feel most helpless and alone, when all around is utter darkness, just look carefully at the dust beneath your feet. Even there you will see my invisible footprints walking alongside you. Loneliness is the greatest and deepest disease of human consciousness. You can be in a room full of laughing and talking people, sitting among your family, and yet feel a terrible isolation deep inside. You feel that no one truly understands your struggles, that you are carrying this heavy burden of your life all alone. This feeling of isolation is the mind's cruelest trick. It makes you feel like an orphan in this vast, cold universe. But our ancient Upanishads give a beautiful example of two birds sitting on the same tree branch. One bird is constantly hopping from branch to branch, sometimes eating sweet and sometimes bitter fruits, sometimes happy and sometimes sad. It is always restless. This is our human ego, or soul. On the other hand, on the highest branch of the same tree, another bird sits, completely calm, still, and filled with divine light. It is silently watching the first bird with infinite love. It is the Supreme Soul. That watching bird never passes judgment, never leaves you, and never takes its eyes off you. Imagine a huge, noisy fair, a crowd of thousands of people, ear-splitting noise, huge swings, and flashing lights. Madhav, a small 5-year-old boy, wanders through the fair holding his father's finger. Suddenly, while looking at a toy, he lost his father's finger. Within seconds, he was swept away by the crowd. Realizing he was lost, Madhav trembled in the crowd of strangers. The noise now frightened him. He began to cry loudly, feeling completely alone and helpless in this cruel and mean world. Weeping, he sat down near a wooden pillar and buried his face in his knees. Then, suddenly, he felt a light, rhythmic tug on his wrist. He opened his eyes and looked down. Before entering the fair, his father had tied a very thin, almost invisible silk thread around Madhav's wrist, and the other end of the thread was in his own hand. Madhav gave the thread a slight tug, and immediately felt 3 strong, loving tugs in response. Madhav followed that invisible thread, weaving through the crowds, past the frightening noise, leading him straight to his father's safe and open arms. His father hadn't let him out of his sight for even a moment. He was simply letting Madhav watch the fair, patiently waiting for the child to remember that connection. My dear soul, you are never alone, at any moment. The silence in your room is not empty. It is filled with the divine presence. Every time you cry silently in solitude, every time you suffer the pain of being rejected by someone, God is sitting quietly beside you, holding the other end of that silken thread. You just have to stop panicking, calm your mind, and gently pull on that thread. The answer will always come. Having realized this deep connection, let's unravel another great tangle of the mind that separates us from others. Chapter 6: The Poison of Comparison and Respecting Your Individuality. The divine voice now speaks to something that is a wound in every heart today. My beloved, when you compare your journey to someone else's, you insult the unique creation I have crafted in the form of you and me alone. In this age where everyone's life has become an object of display, comparison has become all too easy. You see others' successes, their relationships, and their brilliance, and then look at yourself in the mirror and wonder, what am I lacking? This comparison is a slow poison that kills all gratitude and peace within you. But the truth is, how can you reap the same harvest as someone else when the seeds you have been given are completely different? In a vast forest, there lived a very beautiful and happy peacock. His feathers were rainbow-colored, and when he danced, the entire forest stopped to watch him. One day, the peacock caught sight of a falcon soaring high in the sky. The falcon was soaring through the clouds, soaring with boundless freedom. The peacock looked at his heavy wings and felt deeply saddened. He began to think, how unfortunate I am. I have such large wings, yet I cannot reach the heights of the sky like this falcon. My life is wasted. The peacock stopped dancing. He became sad. One day, the oldest and wisest elephant of the forest came to him. The elephant asked, "Peacock, why are you so sad? Even the winds would stop watching your dance." The peacock wept and told him about the falcon. The elephant smiled and said, "Crazy bird, the falcon may be the king of the sky, but can it adorn the earth with its colors like you? Do the falcon's wings have the same enchantment that you possess? God created the falcon to fly and to teach the world the meaning of beauty. When you try to fly, you forget your own greatness. Your life journey is unlike anyone else's because your purpose is unlike anyone else's. You didn't receive what others received, because God wants to give you something that was made just for you. Your shortcomings, your struggles, your unique nature, all are part of a much larger divine plan. Stop writing your story by looking at the pages of others' books. The author of your story is God Himself. After accepting our individuality, a great burden that holds us back is the bitterness of our past. Let us wash that away with love. Chapter 7. The Beauty of Forgiveness and Freedom from the Past. From within the silence, that gentle and compassionate voice echoes again. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is removing from your heart a poisonous arrow that someone else shot, but whose poison you yourself are drinking daily. We have all been deeply hurt at one time or another. We have been betrayed by someone we trusted the most. Someone has disrespected our love. This pain is so deep that we harbor a strong anger and bitterness toward that person. We feel that by not forgiving, we are punishing them. But in reality, anger is like a burning coal that you hold in your fist, hoping it will burn the other person's hand. But it is only your own hand that gets burned. Forgiving does not mean that what happened was right. It also does not mean that you allow that person back into your life. Forgiving simply means that you will no longer allow that incident to destroy your present and future. You free that prisoner, only to discover that the prisoner was none other than yourself. In a kingdom, there was a very kind king. He had a minister in his court who had betrayed the king. He had joined forces with the enemies. When the king learned of this, he had the minister arrested. The law of the land dictated that such a traitor should be given the harshest punishment, the death penalty. The minister was brought before the king in chains. The entire court waited for the king to pronounce his terrible sentence. The king looked into the minister's eyes. The minister was trembling with fear. He had realized his mistake. The king rose from his throne, walked over to the minister, and with his own hands, unchained him. The entire court was stunned. The king said, "What you did to me is unforgivable. But if I kill you, the same hatred that compelled you to commit this sin will arise within me. I do not want to make my heart a graveyard for your sin. I free you. Get out of my sight." The king had freed his own mind from that bitterness, not the minister's. That night, the king slept the deepest and most peaceful sleep of his life. You too must now forgive those who have hurt you, whether unintentionally or intentionally. Leave them to their fate and to God's judgment. Open the doors of your heart and let the stale air escape, so that the fresh air of divine love can enter. And when we let go of all our burdens, all our bitterness, and all our fears, we reach the most supreme and beautiful peak of our spiritual journey. Chapter 8. The Grand Victory of Complete Surrender. Now that voice is filled with intense fatherly affection and compassion, a warmth that melts all the ice within you. My children, surrender is never defeat. It is not throwing up your hands in despair. It is spreading your arms with complete trust. It is the ultimate victory of infinite love over debilitating fear. Our human ego is deeply afraid of the word surrender. We have been taught that surrender means giving up, capitulating, or becoming weak. So we keep fighting. We fight our circumstances, our past, and sometimes our very nature. We build thick walls around our hearts to protect ourselves, without realizing that these walls are not protecting us, but have become our prison. But spiritual surrender is something entirely different. It is the ego's exhaustion and rest. It is finally admitting, I don't know what the path ahead is, and I'm tired of pretending I know everything. Consider a single, fragile drop of water falling from the sky. As it plummets, it is gripped by the terrifying fear of smashing to the ground and ceasing to exist. It desperately tries to hold on to its shape, fearing the loss of its identity as a drop. But the moment that drop hits the vast, infinite ocean, it doesn't die. It doesn't disappear. In that beautiful act of surrendering its tiny, limited form, that tiny drop instantly becomes that vast ocean. That surrender was its ultimate expansion. Once upon a time, in a great city of knowledge, there lived a brilliant scholar named Vedanta. He had read all the scriptures, memorized every sacred verse, and defeated hundreds of sages in philosophical debates. He was very proud and believed he had understood the true nature of God. But beneath his scholarly garb, his heart was dry, anxious, and deeply sad. Knowledge had given him arrogance, not peace. One day, as he proudly passed through a rural area, he saw an illiterate, old tribal woman named Gauri sitting under a tree. She had painted a simple stone red and was offering it wild, half-eaten plums. As she offered the plums, tears of pure, ecstatic joy flowed down her wrinkled face. She spoke to the stone as if God were sitting right in front of her, laughing, crying, and even scolding God with the intimacy of a mother. Vedanta was deeply disturbed by this unscriptural method. He went to Gauri to teach her the correct, bookish way of worship. But when he stood before her, Gauri looked up. her eyes held no ordinary gaze. They held the depth of the infinite sky. The air around her was filled with such a profound peace that upon striking Vedanta, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Thousands of verses he had memorized evaporated in an instant. His vast knowledge, which he had polished over decades, seemed like a pile of dry dust before the ocean of this innocent woman's love. Vedanta slowly fell to his knees in that dust. He realized that God cannot be confined within the cage of intellect and logic. He can only be realized in the open sky of love and complete surrender. Vedanta bowed his head before the tribal woman, weeping profusely, and finally laid down the heavy burden of his pride, his knowledge, and his ego, right there on the ground. This same invitation, right now, is being extended to you through this voice. You don't need to be perfect or flawless to receive God's love. You don't need to solve every puzzle in life. You have complete freedom to be entangled, confused, or broken. Bring all your fears, your broken dreams, your anger, and the tears you've hidden for years, and lay them all at the feet of this universe. No more bargaining with life, no more stubbornness. Just take a deep breath and say within yourself, I am yours, now you guide me. The moment you truly make this true surrender, all worries about the future vanish into thin air. All past regrets evaporate. You step out of the stormy and frightening sea of your mind and onto the solid, eternal ground of divine grace, where there is only peace. O tender heart, you are deeply loved. You are being fiercely protected. This universe is not a chaotic accident. It is a beautiful, divine play, and you are its most cherished part. Let this truth seep into your every breath. Let your tense shoulders relax. Don't hold your weary heart hard any longer. Let it soften. All that unnecessary struggle, all that futile race of your life, is now over.